Anna, and I'm very glad to be a participant in the ESRA conference and to talk about the horticultural landscape in the Winter's Tale by Shakespeare, plants typology and symbolism. William Shakespeare, the god of theatre, as Victor Hugo said, could have been an outstanding botanist because he knew the floral world brilliantly and mentioned over 170 plants in his works. In the Winter's Tale alone, we find about 40 species of flowers and herbs, and the main young heroes of the play, Perdita and Florizel, are associated with the beauty of plants' universe, embodying natural charm and spiritual purity. Even the name of the Bohemian prince comes from the Latin word flor, which means flower, and he calls his beloved Perdita Flora, the Roman goddess of nature and spring. Perdita and Florizel's story unfolds outside the palaces, far from all artificiality. They live in a harmony with nature, turning to its images, in particular to express their main feelings of both boundless joy and bitter sadness. For example, when Polixenes, convinced that Perdita is an ordinary peasant, strictly forbade his son to marry her, Florizel made it clear that no force will make him leave his beloved girl. The separation from Perdita means for him the destruction of the whole world. So he exclaims, "Let nature crush the side of the earth together and mar the seeds within." In The Winter's Tale, Shakespeare creates an entire exhibition of plants, which allows developing their typology and highlighting their semantic and symbolic potential, as well as their functions in the play. First, in Shakespeare's works, we can find plants that look so much alike that only experienced botanists will be able to distinguish the strains which mislead us. For example, among spring flowers with which Perdita imagines decorating Florizel, she references to the oxlip, very similar by its appearance with the cowslip that is mentioned in A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Tempest, Cymbeline, and Henry V. Elizabeth I's famous rainbow portrait depicts the queen wearing a dress that was embroidered with various flowers of spring, particularly with cowslips. In this portrait, as Francis Yates points out, the queen can be identified as Astrea, the virgin goddess of purity and justice, who descended on earth, bringing with her the return of the Golden Age. Elizabeth Tudor thus appeared as Astrea to create the eternal spring days and the spirit of renewal. Spring flowers play a crucial role in expressing this meaning. In The Winter's Tale, spring flowers probably signify that with Perdita's arrival in Sicily, the tragic years in Leontes and Hermione's kingdom, which may be compared to a cold winter in their lives, will have been replaced by the season of happiness and renewal. The second group of plants creating the horticultural landscape in The Winter's Tale includes the flowers genetically related to ancient mythology. Perdita admires and wishes she had the legendary flower daffodil, or narcissus, named, according to ancient Greek myth, after a young hunter who fell deeply in love with his own image reflected in a pool of water. Unable to satisfy his desire, he died, eventually turning in a showy yellow flower. The heroine of The Winter's Tale speaks of daffodils in the context of another myth, telling about the abduction of Proserpina, the goddess of the harvest, by the god Pluto. It's said that when the king of the underworld appeared in his golden chariot to steal the daughter of Ceres, she was picking daffodils. These flowers of the spring prelude were considered in Elizabethan England, in particular, as the harbingers of happiness and good news. Perdita wishes she had daffodils, and this desire is symbolic, as it indicates her serene future with Florizel. Perdita also wishes to have another spring flower that appeared in mythology. It's flower de luce. The Elizabethan men of letters, Edmund Spenser, Francis Bacon, Ben Jonson, etc., identified it as the iris, and Shakespeare probably followed their traditions. The flower iris is named after the ancient Greek goddess of the rainbow. Iris, fleet as the wind, is the winged messenger of the gods of Olympus, as Homer described her. According to the French linguist Charles Brunon, the very image of a stylized iris, not a lily, became emblematic in French heraldry. It's to be noted that the flower de luce had been used on the heraldic shields of English monarchs, including Elizabeth I. The symbol of France on the royal arms of the Kingdom of England reminded of its claim to the French throne. In Elizabethan era, the flower de luce was a symbol of faith, wisdom, and courage. The presence of these flowers in Perdita's desired bouquet demonstrates that she has royal blood and also means the readiness of young heroes to fearlessly overcome any trouble in the path towards their love and life destiny. Among the summer flowers, Perdita mentions mint, which also gets its name from a mythological source. This sweet fragrant herb earned its name due to the naiad mint, whose Hades' mistress. According to the Greek poet Opium, the ruler of the underworld abandoned her after having raped the maid Persephone. Then Mint complained loudly, with overweening words, and raved foolishly for jealousy. And Demeter, in anger, trampled her with her feet and destroyed her. And from the earth sprang the weak herb that bears her name. Mint is also found in the story of Baucis and Philemon, who kindly received Zeus and Hermes, disguised as ordinary travelers, in their poor house. The woman rubbed the surface of the table with mint to make it smell fresh, and they laid out the best they had. The gods sincerely rewarded the poor couple for their hospitality, giving them longevity and turning their house into a temple. Since then, the mint is revered in the European tradition as a symbol of hospitality. The heroine of the Winter's Tale welcomes the guests at the Bohemian ship-sharing festival with the mint, in particular, that characterizes her as a very hospitable, courteous, and caring hostess. The third group consists of the so-called aggressive plants. It includes garlic, nettles, and various prickly shrubs. Garlic is an aggressive because of its unbearable smell, but since ancient times, it was thought to repel demons and to have curative properties. For example, it was an important component of the daily rations of ancient Egyptian laborers to stimulate their health. In Renaissance Europe, it was recommended for constipation, animal bites, infectious diseases, and even the plague. In Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, the image of garlic is used to enhance the farce that nourishes the artistic body of the play. During the village feast, before dancing, the shepherdess Dorcas mocks her friends Mopsa and Clown, shouting, "Mopsa must be your mistress, Mary, garlic, to mend her kissing with." The second aggressive plant mentioned in the Winter's Tale is the nettle. This herb was very popular in Renaissance Europe. The English botanist Nicholas Culpeper stated, "Nettles were so well known that they need no description. They may be found by feeling in the darkest night." John Gerard, the author of Herbal or General History of Plants, related that nettle was a remedy against the venomous qualities of hemlock, mushrooms, and quicksilver, and a counter-poison for henbane, serpents, and scorpions. In the Winter's Tale, the nettles appear with the other plants causing pain, such as goats and thorns. All these irritators have been used in a metaphorical sense in the scene of Leontes' jealous rage. Absolutely convinced that Hermione had betrayed him, he compared his wife's infidelity to spots on the innocent whiteness of their sheets, having turned into goats, thorns, nettles, tails of wasps. The phytonims, nettles, and thorns are significant creative strategies helping to depict the image of Leontes' jealousy and to express his emotional state, going from an outburst of despair to fierce rage. Such aggressive plants as thorns are also mentioned in the replica of Prince Florizel, when he, despite his father's ban, decides to marry Perdita and flee with her to Sicily. Realizing the danger that awaits them because of their intention to destruct the class prejudices, he exclaims, "My prettiest Perdita, but oh, the thorns we stand upon." The metaphor created with the phytonym thorns emphasizes, on the other hand, the incredible complexity of the situation in which the heroes found themselves, and on the other hand, highlights their ability to withstand the challenge of fate. The fourth group includes the plants, which can be called fragrant doctors. The floral world of the Winter's Tale is rich in the sense of medicinal plants. In preparation for the village holiday, Perdita instructs Clown to buy spices for cooking which were in great demand in Shakespeare's England, namely saffron and ginger. As for the other fragrant plants, such as mint, rue, rosemary, lavender, savory, and marjoram, the young heroine chooses them as gifts for the festival guests. Rue is a symbol of compassion and mercy. In medieval England, it was used as an antidote, a contraceptive, and a defense against plague. Rosemary, which means in Latin dew of the sea, was one of the most popular herbs in the era of Queen Elizabeth. The English herbalist John Parkinson remarked, "This common rosemary is so well known through all our land, being in every woman's garden, that it was sufficient but to name it as an ornament among other sweet herbs and flowers in our garden, since every one can describe it." It was generally used as a powerful stimulant of brain functions and an agent of treating insomnia and nervous system diseases. The persistent aroma of this plant was correlated with memory and the ability to remember. Shakespeare emphasizes its strong association with memory and remembrance, putting the following words into Perdita's mouth. "For you there is rosemary and rue. This keeps seeming and savor all the winter long. Grace and remembrance be to you both." Such an amazing gift of nature as lavender has traditionally symbolized in Elizabethan England sincere and devoted love. Evidence of this is one of the lyrical songs of the time of Queen Elizabeth, which tells that lavender is for lovers true. Lavender was one of the favorite herbs of the Elizabethans because of its aromatic potential and ability to remove unpleasant smells. It was also valued for its other properties. Well known as a sedative, Lavender had also a reputation as a good aphrodisiac. It was thought to boost libido and improve male sexual performance. So, it is no coincidence that the young Shakespeare heroine, who undoubtedly knew about it, decides to give lavender and other fragrant plants to middle-aged men, namely to disguised Polixenes and Camillo. As you can see, savory and marjoram are also included in the list of plants that Perdita prescribes to older men. And this can also be explained by their medicinal properties. Thus, marjoram improves blood circulation in tissues, helps reduce nervous tension, and overcome migraines. The use of savory is effective in cystitis, indigestion, and reduced sexual potency in men. The fifth group contains the so-called tasty plants. Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale abounds in sweet gifts of fruit-bearing plants, such as currants, raisins, dates, pears, and prunes. In Shakespeare's time, salads were made from dried fruits and berries, so dates, raisins, and currants were among their main ingredients. That's why they're included in the list of clowns' necessary products for the pastoral holiday. As for plums, people in Renaissance England liked them very much not only for their bright taste, but also for their healing properties. They believed that the dried varieties of plums or prunes improved sexual stamina and were a reliable way to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. These two reasons could explain why the dishes of stewed prunes were regularly provided in brothels. It is no coincidence that clowns' shopping list included prunes. It's clear that during village feasts, shepherds not only danced and played the pipes, but also welted in carnal pleasures. So this fruit wonder was in great demand back then. Finally, the Elizabethans grew different types of pears. In The Winter's Tale, for example, we find such variety as Warden pear, widely known as Black Worcester. There are two versions of the origin of this name. According to the first, it comes from the Anglo-Saxon word "werden," which means to preserve. The adherents of the second version believe that Warden pear owes its name to Warden Abbey in Bedfordshire, with the Cistercian monks planting them in the monastery garden. This fruit has such a great success that 3 Warden pears were represented in the armorial bearings of the abbey. Warden pear was widely used for baking, so the heroes of The Winter's Tale were going to prepare pies with this variety of pear. The sixth group comprises plants playing the role of natural dyes. These are saffron and marigold. Saffron is a spicy and coloring plant that was used both as a hair dye and as an orange food coloring. In The Winter's Tale, the clown must have saffron to color the Warden pies. During the reign of Elizabeth Tudor, Her Majesty's red gold hair was considered an ideal of beauty, so English ladies and gentlemen tried to imitate it with the use of light hair dye made from a mixture of saffron. Unlike saffron, which was quite expensive, marigold was a more affordable plant material for hair coloring. Marigold was one of the Renaissance poets' favorite flowers because it contained a rich symbolic potential and associations with death, rebirth, and hope. This symbolism is due to the natural rhythm of the plant, which blooms its orange petals at sunrise and closes them when daylight fades beyond the horizon. Shakespeare's Perdita speaks of this very feature of this flower. The marigold that goes to bed with the sun, and with him rises weeping. Weeps or tears are a metaphor for the dew that appears on the flowers in the morning, heralding dawn and spiritual enlightenment. The last group in the plant catalogue of the Winter's Tale embraces the flowers-ornaments. Among the decorative plants, Perdita dreams of having spring flowers in her garden, such as primroses, violets, the crown imperial, as well as daffodils, flowers de luce, and oxlips, which have already been mentioned. The primrose became a symbol of the English monarchy in the Elizabethan era, as Queen Elizabeth was called the prime rose of England. This flower also symbolized youth and young love. Appearing in early spring and blooming fairly quickly, it could signify melancholy and be associated with a young girl who had managed to enjoy only the spring period of her life, having left this world before reaching adulthood. This very sense is conveyed by Shakespearean heroine when she speaks about pale primroses that die unmarried, ere they can behold bright Phoebus in his strength, a melody most incident to maids. Phoebus, Apollo's chief epithet, represents the warmth of the summer sun. Violets are the flowers that Perdita considers to be dim, but sweeter than the lids of Junior's eyes or Cytherean breath. The delicate violet is a symbol of fidelity, permanence, and beauty, but modest beauty, because it prefers to remain in the shade. Finally, among spring flowers ornaments, we can also find the crown imperial. This perennial in the lily family has a specific smell that is not tolerated by mice, moles, and other nuisance animals. In England, this flower was first seen in the Elizabethan period, thanks to Nicholas Lead, a wealthy merchant who imported the bulbs of Crown Imperial to London from the Syrian city of Aleppo. It can be assumed that this desired Perdita's flower stands for the noble status of the young heroine. A special role in the Winter's Tale is given to carnations. It should be noted, the herbalist John Gerard called them infinite, because every year, every climate and country brings forth new sorts. The carnation was a symbol of the royal court during the reign of Elizabeth I, and the hand-on portrait depicts the queen holding a carnation. Interestingly enough, Elizabeth Tudor, during her life, as Garrett Queally points out, received a gift of carnation-colored clothing over 100 times. In this regard, John Parkinson called carnations, as well as gilliflowers, which are paired up with them, the queen of delight and of flowers, and the pride of our English gardens. Despite the Elizabethans' favorable opinions given to carnations and gilliflowers, Perdita wouldn't grow them, because she considers these flowers, some call nature's bastards, to be artificial. She explains, "For I have heard it said, there is an art which in their piedness shares with great creating nature." The point here is that carnations and gillias quickly adapt to pollen transferred by other plants, and this very ability to adapt is called art by Shakespeare's heroine. Polixenes, speaking about carnations and gillias, develops the idea of the symbiosis of nature and art. Yet nature is made better by no mean, but nature makes that mean. The art itself is nature. Another reason for Perdita's scorn for these flowers could be their association, as Marina Hillmeyer writes, with vanity and pride. Finally, the heroine probably opposes, as Olena Alexeyenko observes, the naturalness of the rural existence to the court life artificiality. Thus, it can be argued that the horticultural landscape in Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale is a diverse world of plants that enchant with their beauty, colors, smells, properties, as well as impress with their mysteries. Among them, there are the disorienting plants, the flowers with mythological genetics, the aggressive plants, the fragrant doctors, the tasty plants, the plants' dyes, and the flowers-ornaments. All of them may belong to two main categories: aesthetic, daffodils, primroses, etc., and or applied in the household, culinary, raisins, prunes, etc., medicine, mint, rue, rosemary, etc., and cosmetology, saffron and marigold. However, some of them perform certain functions in the Winter's Tale: metaphorical, oxlips, violets, marigolds, etc., elusive or reminiscent, flower de luce, daffodils, rue and rosemary, characterological or emotive, mint, nettles and thorns, and ionic, garlic. The language of flowers, herbs and fruits is very important for depicting the general atmosphere of the play and the psychological portraits of the characters.